In November 2002, a construction company owner from West Virginia named Andrew Jack Whitaker won $314 million in the Powerball. Within 5 years, his marriage collapsed. His granddaughter was found dead. He was robbed multiple times, sued more than 400 times, and he later said in an interview that he wished he'd torn up the ticket. Meanwhile, in 2019, a 24-year-old former Domino's driver named Manuel Franco from West Allis, Wisconsin, won $768 million. Today, years later, his life is still quiet, still stable, and still his own. Same game, same odds, completely different outcome. And the difference wasn't luck. It was what each of them did in the first 48 hours after that ticket got scanned. If you won a life-changing amount of money tomorrow morning, what's the very first phone call you'd make? Would you call your mom, your best friend, a lawyer, or nobody at all? Type your answer in the comments before you keep watching, because I guarantee by the end of this video, your answer is going to change. And while you're at it, guess which one of these 9 moves you think trips up the most winners. I'll tell you the real answer later, and I promise it is not the one you're thinking of right now. If you've got a parent, a sibling, or a friend who jokes about what I'd do if I won the lottery, send them this video right now, because half the people in the stories you're about to hear thought the exact same thing, right up until it happened to them for real. Before we get into it, if you're into true stories about money, power, and the split-second decisions that make or break people's entire lives, hit that subscribe button and tap the like on this one. It genuinely helps this channel keep making these deep dives. And trust me, the case studies coming up are wild. So here's the thing nobody tells you about winning the lottery. The drawing is the easy part. What happens in the next 2 days decides whether you end up like Manuel Franco, quietly investing and living well for decades, or like William Bud Post, a Pennsylvania man who won $16.2 million in 1988 and was $1 million in debt within a year, after his own brother hired a hitman hoping to inherit a share of the winnings. 9 specific things separate the winners who keep their money and their sanity from the ones who become cautionary tales on channels exactly like this one. Let's go through them in order, starting with the very first thing that happens the moment those numbers match. The first thing every smart winner does, before they even process what just happened, is sign the back of the ticket. That's it. That's the move. It sounds almost too simple to matter, but a lottery ticket is a bearer instrument, which means legally whoever is holding it and whoever signed it owns the prize. If you lose an unsigned ticket, or if someone takes a photo of it and prints a copy, there have been real disputes over who actually gets the money. Signing it immediately, in ink, turns a random piece of paper worth hundreds of millions of dollars into something that is legally, unambiguously yours. Mathis Wanchik, the Massachusetts hospital worker who won $758.7 million in August 2017, the largest single-ticket jackpot in U.S. history at the time, has said she signed her ticket standing right at the counter of the convenience store before she even left the building. Then she put it somewhere safe. Not her purse, not her car. A location only she knew about, and she didn't tell a single person where that was for days. Which brings us to the second move, and this is the one that separates people who stay rich from people who get destroyed within a year. Smart winners say absolutely nothing, not to their spouse over dinner, not to their best friend, not to their mom. Nothing. Sandra Hayes, a former social worker from Missouri, who was part of a 14-person office pool that split a $224 million Powerball jackpot in 2006, has talked publicly about what happened the moment word got out in her small circle. Within days, she said, people she hadn't spoken to in 20 years were calling. Estranged family members showed up. She described it as feeling like everyone she'd ever met suddenly needed exactly the amount of money she'd just won. The lucky winners are the ones who bought themselves time before that avalanche started, because once people know, you cannot unring that bell. Third, and this is the step most people skip because they're excited and they want validation, Smart winners do not tell their employer, their coworkers, or post anything on social media. No status update, no group text, nothing. Manuel Franco reportedly kept working his hourly job for a period after his win, specifically because he hadn't gone public yet, and he wanted to think clearly without his entire life turning upside down overnight. The moment your name and your win become public knowledge, and in some states it legally has to, every decision you make afterward happens under a microscope, with strangers, scammers, and long-lost relatives watching. The winners who protect that silence for as long as legally possible are buying themselves the single most valuable resource in this entire situation, and that resource is time to think without pressure. Fourth, and here's where it gets serious, every single smart lottery winner assembles a team before they walk into a lottery office to claim anything. Not after, before. That team is almost always the same three people. A lawyer who specializes in either estate planning or lottery winning specifically, because yes, that's a real specialty now. A certified financial advisor, ideally a fee-only fiduciary, meaning someone who is legally required to act in your best interest, rather than earning a commission by pushing you towards certain investments. And a certified public accountant who understands exactly how a lump sum versus an annuity gets taxed, because federal tax alone can eat 37% of a jackpot, and state taxes stack on top, depending on where you live. Brad Duke, an Idaho gym manager who won $220 million in 2005, has said in interviews that before he ever claimed his prize, he interviewed and hired a team of financial advisors, and he treated the sudden windfall less like a jackpot and more like he'd just become the CEO of a company that needed serious, professional management. 2 decades later, by investing carefully and diversifying instead of spending wildly, his fortune reportedly grew rather than shrank. That's not luck. That's a direct result of decision number 4. Now here's a question for the comments, and I want a real answer. Out of these first 4 moves, which one do you think you'd actually forget to do if it happened to you tonight? Be honest. I'll read them. 5th, smart winners figure out, often with that legal team, whether their state allows them to claim the prize anonymously or through a legal entity like a trust. This matters more than almost anything else on this list. States like Delaware, Kansas, Maryland, and several others allow winners to remain anonymous or to claim through a trust, meaning the trust name goes public, not the winner's personal name. Other states like Texas at the time Sandra Hayes' pool won, or Missouri, historically required public disclosure of the winner's name. When public disclosure is required, the workaround smart winners use is called a blind trust, where a lawyer sets up a legal entity, the trust claims the prize, and the winner's personal name never has to be attached to it in searchable records. Marie Holmes, a North Carolina woman who won $188 million in 2015 and became one of the largest lottery winners in the state's history, had her name become public because of North Carolina's disclosure laws at the time, and she's since spoken about the flood of financial requests and manipulation she experienced afterward, including from people close to her. Compare that to winners in anonymous states who've described being able to keep living in the same house, driving the same car, and having neighbors who never even find out. 6th, and this one is almost never discussed, smart winners do not rush to claim the ticket at all. Every state gives you a window, typically somewhere between 90 days and 1 full year, to actually turn in the winning ticket. There is functionally zero benefit to claiming a 9-figure prize within the first week, and there's enormous benefit to waiting. That waiting period is when the legal team gets the trust structured, when the financial advisor builds an actual investment plan, when the accountant models out the tax difference between the lump sum and the 30-year annuity option, and when the winner, frankly, gets a chance to breathe and sleep on possibly the biggest financial decision of their entire life. Cynthia Stafford, a single mother from Los Angeles who won $112 million in 2007, has spoken about taking real time before claiming, using that period to plan seriously rather than react emotionally, which is part of why she was able to go on to build a legitimate film production company with the winnings instead of watching it evaporate. 7th, once it is time to actually go public or claim the money, Smart winners avoid the big press conference photo op if their state gives them any option to skip it. I know it looks fun in the news clips, the giant check, the balloons, the huge smile, but that photo circulates forever. It tells every con artist, every distant cousin, every fake charity, and every predatory contractor exactly what you look like and exactly how much you're worth. Winners who've managed to stay financially stable for decades overwhelmingly describe keeping as low a profile as their state's laws allow, sometimes sending a lawyer or trustee to physically claim the check on their behalf, so their own face is never publicly connected to the number at all. Eighth, and this is the move that would have saved William Bud Post an enormous amount of pain. Smart winners do not make any major purchases, do not quit their job publicly, and do not lend or gift large sums of money in the first weeks, let alone the first 48 hours. Bud Post, within roughly a year of his $16 million win, had reportedly invested in and lost money on a failed restaurant venture with his brother, been convinced to loan money to family members who never paid it back, and became the target of that plot by his own brother to have him killed for a larger inheritance share. He later said the win, in his own words, was a nightmare, not a dream. Contrast that with financial advisors who work with winners today, who almost universally recommend a mandatory freeze, something like 90 days of doing absolutely nothing with the money, except letting it sit in a secure insured account while the real financial plan gets built. No new car. No paying off every relative's debt. Just a pause. That pause has saved more lottery winners than any investment strategy ever could. If you ask me, out of everything on this list, this eighth point is actually the real dividing line, and here's why I think that. Every single disaster story you've probably heard about lottery winners going broke doesn't come from bad luck or bad investments. It comes from emotional decisions made in the first few weeks, driven by guilt, pressure from family, or the simple thrill of finally being able to say yes to everything. The winners who succeed long-term aren't smarter investors than the ones who fail. They're just more disciplined about doing nothing at first. That restraint, that ability to sit on a life-changing amount of money and not touch it while your emotions are running at maximum volume, is genuinely rarer than winning the lottery in the first place. Which one of these stories has surprised you the most so far? Whitaker, Bud Post, Sandra Hayes, or Brad Duke? Drop it in the comments. I want to know. And if you've made it this far, seriously, go ahead and hit that like button. It tells the algorithm to show this to more people and helps this channel keep digging up stories like these. Ninth, and last, the smartest winners set up a structured system for family and giving before they ever hand out a single dollar. Instead of writing checks to whoever asks first, or feeling guilty into funding every cousin's business idea, financially disciplined winners work with their legal and financial team to create either a family trust, a foundation, or a clear one-time gifting plan with hard limits, decided calmly, in advance, rather than reactively under emotional pressure in a family group chat. This does two things at once. It protects relationships because the trust doesn't allow it is a much easier boundary to hold than I said no. And it protects the money itself from what financial planners bluntly call sudden wealth erosion, the slow bleed of 9 figures down to nothing through hundreds of small, guilt-driven decisions. So if you put all 9 of these together, here's the real pattern. Sign it. Say nothing. Stay quiet publicly. Build your team before you claim. Understand your state's anonymity laws. Take your time before turning it in. Skip the spotlight if you can. Freeze all major spending. And build a giving structure instead of an open door. None of that requires being a financial genius. None of it requires an economics degree. It just requires patience, in a moment when every instinct in your body is screaming at you to celebrate loudly and spend fast. And that, honestly, might be the biggest lesson buried in every single one of these stories. The lottery doesn't test your luck. Luck is already done the second those numbers match. What it actually tests is your discipline in the 48 hours right after your entire life changes. when nobody would blame you for losing your mind a little. But the people who protect their future are the ones who don't. So here's my question for you, and I actually want you to sit with this one for a second before you scroll away. If you had 48 hours, completely silent, completely private, before anyone on earth knew you'd won, what is the one thing you would do differently than every single person in this video? Put it in the comments. I read every one of them, and I'm genuinely curious what you'd choose. If this video kept you watching till the end, do me a favor and hit like, subscribe if you're not already, and send this to that one friend who always jokes about their lottery plan. Because after watching this, I promise you their plan is about to get a whole lot smarter.